because I've never really thought of myself as rich. I started working on financial freedom a little over a decade ago. It took 8 years to reach what I call financial independence, where work was optional. And then I worked for another 4 years and got to the point where the passive income coming in was more than 4 times what it takes me to live a comfortable life every month. Then I actually felt kind of stupid going to work. So I retired last year. And I'm coming up on 9-ish months, 8-9 months of being retired with a significant amount of money. I'm doing everything I want to do, taking cruises, planning a trip to Portugal. Last year, I spent 2 months in Florida just scuba diving and doing whatever I want to do. The vehicle I actually want to, and can buy anyone I want. And so I was thinking, what's changed? And so I started looking at it, and it's actually the money, right? The fact of these things changed because of being wealthy. And some of this is things that I'm hoping you can get ready for. Some things are going to be different for you and you can't plan for it. For me, I think the weirdest drastic change I wasn't expecting was the dramatic shift in my group of friends. My friends generally, when I started investing, were all doing financially better than me. There was a period of time where it was actually really hard for me to be around my friends because going to even just a dinner was outside of my ability to afford. I found out about a bunch of bad debt, got laid off from a law enforcement job, started working at a truck driving school, making $17 an hour. And most of my friends were making more than $50,000 a year. A couple were in 6 figures, but not too many. And so I really struggled with keeping that group of friends around. And most of them got into camping and bought RVs, and they travel a lot on the weekends because they work very hard for their money. So it's not that they're financially free. These are people who have what at the time I would have called a decent amount of money that they were working for. When I started to focus on money, it's not that our relationship changed. I think my focus on what I was paying attention to changed. Instead of spending a fortune to live like the homeless and going camping like my friends do, I was thinking, how do I save for the first house hack? How do I save for the next rental? How do I avoid taking vacations for several years and watching all my friends go to Disneyland and Vegas and me just picking on them because you don't go to Disneyland without kids. It's just kind of weird, but they do. Until I reached that financial independence stage, and now I can do anything I want. So they all thought I was weird when I started taking 1-month trips to other countries because I didn't have to worry about the time at work. And so it's not like the quality of your friend changes. It's what your friends focus on that changes. I've got a group of friends that's into scuba diving. I've got a group of friends that's into defensive tactics. I've got a group of friends that's going into the range. I've got a friend, like these different groups of people. But then I find myself now, since I focused on finances so much, that the people that I'm the most relaxed around and can actually have a conversation where I don't feel like I have to have an interpreter, it's people who have also focused on money. And some of this is virtual, like Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time. Well, I have met him a couple of times now. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, we have met. We're possibly going to see each other again here in a bit. Millennial Mike, I get to spend a lot of time with somebody who's actually focusing on their finances and getting their life together, versus my friends trying to figure out how to enjoy the limited amount of time that they don't have to be at work. So the group of friends changing, I wasn't expecting, because I thought I was the poor one in our group of friends. So when I started having money, then I would be the same. So that was weird. When most of us don't have a lot of money, a lot of people turn to social media for validation. So if you know me, this isn't about you specifically. But if you're watching Facebook, every single couple that you see that screams how much their relationship is perfect and amazing is looking for that validation. The wealthy people that I know, myself, the people who made it to financial freedom, social media is a way to grow your brand, a way to source deals, a way to expand your business, a way to find like-minded people that can actually make your life better, because they are also getting their finances right so that then they could do whatever they want with their life. kind of the reason why this became the topic for this is that one of the things that changes really weird with money is how you're treated. And I went to Thailand in 2019, and I went to like a silk factory and had some suits made, literally where you kind of watched the whole process. And so I have these two really nice silk suits that I got in Thailand, and I've never worn them because I'm just not a suit guy. I don't dress up. Have I worn them? No, I haven't. So they sit in the closet. I wear hoodies, I wear cowboy hats, I wear cowboy boots. I don't get all dressed up fancy. And recently, because of the banking stress, the banking crisis, the whatever you want to call it, I was saving money for the next purchase. And the money has been adding up since 2021. So it's getting significant because even though I'm doing everything I want to, once you hit that thing called the income snowball, your life just gets better and the money piles up, even if you're spending it. I'm learning how to spend. That's hard. So the FDIC insures up to $250,000 in a bank. I had about $500,000 in the bank. And I thought, well, I better go to two banks because I'm telling people this is what you want to put that money to risk. When I had previously, I'd get to 200, maybe I'd get to like 60 and I'd buy a duplex. And I get to 70 and I'd buy a duplex. And then I got to 100 and bought a fourplex, got to 100, bought another triplex. And so I started buying bigger deals with more money. And then since 2021, I started focusing on retiring and getting my money, like letting it stack up. So I was more confident in my ability to retire. And so there's literally $500,000. So I'm changing the deals that I'm looking at, right? So when I was starting out, I was looking at what can I do? I can house hack. Well, now I could do a BRRRR where I finance it myself and I don't have to use hard money. So like my lending options change because I'm rich too, not just what we invest in, but how we can invest. So I haven't found that deal yet. And I'm actually changing that. Me and my brother are going to Portugal in a couple of weeks as soon as I get back from Gary, Indiana. And we're going to be, I'm going to be, not my brother, he's going to visit, but I'm going to be looking for a house. Just one, because I kind of will be testing out the waters because it's really hard to find a country where they like Americans. And I want to find, a way to kind of snowbird and get out of Washington in the winter. But I don't want to be in Florida where there's hurricanes, and I don't want to be in Arizona where I've lived in the desert before. And while it's nice in the winter, it can also be cold AF. No thanks. So the climate in Portugal, I've seen from what I've seen, it like 50 is the bottom, 90 is the top. So it's where I'm going to. And so what's changed is I'm not living where the work is. Right? Most of us have to live where the work is. Even if you work remotely, you're going to the office once or twice a week. I'm going to live where I'm comfortable. That's a big change for me. So back to the bank story. I had the money in the bank. I have a tenant who pays their rent in cash. And I sent an email saying, hey, I've received your rent. You're good to go. So there's an electronic paper trail. If you receive rents, it's okay to do it in cash. Make sure they get a receipt and make sure you claim it on your taxes. And if you're audited, they're actually going to look at your accounts and see where the deposits come from and when they line up with rent payments. So I actually want to report it because I want to be bankable. So I had the money from 1 month's payment and I went into Wells Fargo. So I've got this, I'm in a hoodie and I have this fancy hairdo and I'm in sneakers and I've got a wadded up pile of $20 bills covered in glitter, right? So I say, I would like to open an account. And this she's not rude, right? This girl sits me down at her desk and she's like, okay, we can open a savings account. She's typing, made eye contact maybe twice in 15 minutes to set the account up, like, decent customer service skills, not a bad person. But that was my experience opening a checking account at this bank. Then I go across the street to my bank and I get cashier's checks for $250,000. And I go back over to the bank where I'm opening up the new account to deposit $250,000 and 3 assistants, private desk, side of the building. All of a sudden, I'm important. And I actually make the comment, I'm like, where was this treatment when I walked in here with a pocket full of cash to open an account? How you are treated when you have money it's not only like how you're treated, but the way the world treats you monetarily changes. When you don't have a lot of, look, you go open a bank account, put in $10, monthly maintenance fee. Your probably going to hit overdraft. Like if you're going to get overdraft and you're going to have bills that you might not be on time on, your credit score goes down. So the next time you go to buy something, the interest rate is higher, the down payment requirement is higher, the reserve requirement is higher because you don't have a perfect credit score. But when you have enough money to where I just set up every bill on automatic pay, and I've never thought about how much money's in the account because there's an X factor multiple of what I need in there to pay the bills. My credit score is hovering around 800 with doing very little because my debt to income ratio is very low. High credit limits with no credit card balances ever carried. So I have a high credit score. So if I go to buy something, I'm going to get a really good interest rate, really good down payment options. Reserve requirements are the standard required, not changed. So it's like it's cheaper to live when you're rich than it is when you're poor. An example is food. Right. And it's not the money cheaper, it's the quality of food is cheaper. When I worked, I had to work 50, 60 hours a week to reach financial freedom and then kind of develop a side hustle on the side. I had a lot of time for shopping, preparing meals, finding the best restaurants or whatever. So I'd eat a lot of fast food. I'd eat at Wendy's, Subway, pho, at least 2 or 3 times a week, every single week. And now that I have the time freedom to do whatever food, it's what healthy, even if it's at a restaurant, what healthy choices are there? Because time isn't the constraint. I have to be in and out in 30 minutes or less what I'm eating. So these are all these weird things that change once you have money that I'm hoping people can kind of be ready for. Because if you're not ready for your group of friends to change, you might be unhappy that it seems like you can't be around your current friends, because once you start making money and you realize that the purpose, so the difference between poor people and rich people isn't how much money they have or how much money they make. It's what they think the purpose of money is. And for most of our lives when we're poor, we think the purpose of money is to buy things. So we work hard to buy things. Once we become wealthy, we realize the purpose of money is to make money. And the vernacular, the words that are associated with how we use our money is so different that I can't spend more than 10 or 20 minutes around my friends who don't think about money and have an actual conversation because we use different language, right? All I hear is fear, right? You have debt. You have more than one mortgage. You don't have a job. How can you, like, all this fear of what it takes to reach financial freedom versus I talk to my friend Matt or Mike or sometimes people in the chat and I suggest something and I get suggestions back instead of like, isn't that risky? Even if it was something risky, I say, I'm going to do this risky thing. The people that speak this way who have reached financial freedom or are very close or on the path will say, here's how you can mitigate the risk with that thing you're suggesting to do. Very different conversation. So I'm hoping you can be ready for that. I'm hoping you can be ready for the banks to start treating you different. They laughed, but I know they got the point. I almost wish I'd like recorded it and done it on purpose, but to protect the innocent, the locations have been altered in this story. So if you're watching this in Futureland, that was my start of the rant of what it's like to be, what changes when you're rich. The rest of this is going to be a live stream where I focus on answering questions. I have a surprise guest coming on towards the end, which if we do it right, I think they're going to go on to Millennial Mike's channel and we will be going there at the end. Depends on what Mike has set up. He will be showing up here eventually. And I think I kept my rant to a short. It's only 4:14, so it's a less than 15-minute rant. So yay me. I'm hoping that all of these problems that come when you're rich are your problems. Because as big of changes as they are, none of them suck. I do miss the friendship that I had with some people, but, and I don't want to say they've been replaced, but the people that I spend the most time with now, it just seems to align with them. An example, I have a friend who talked about moving to Portugal several years ago and then has delayed it because of some weird decisions that they made. My friends that I spend the most time with now, when I talk about Portugal, it's Oh, that's awesome. Have you looked into the laws? What's the investing like? What's the housing market like there? This friend is telling me to F off, find my own country because he talked about it first. Like that's the support you get from the people that you've known a long time. And I have a question that I got from a friend before the live chat. So I'm going to get to that, and then I'm going to get to the howdies and the questions that are here today. So the question from my friend John is, can I explain why I would recommend buying a house hack duplex with 20% down conventional fixed rate loan versus an FHA loan with little to no down payment and low interest rate? So first, the FHA loan sometimes isn't always going to have the better interest rate, and 20% doesn't have mortgage insurance. And second, I don't suggest to do that. My first house hack was a 5% down conventional loan, so I didn't go 20%. So I want to clarify to John, if you're watching, I say to run the numbers on a house hack as though you did a 20% down payment, because it's very easy to look like you have a great yield if you do zero or little down. So if you have a VA loan, which I have available and have never used, but you can do zero down and then make $1 a year, and it's an infinite return. Right? I'm not looking to see how good the return is. I have a video coming out. So here's the whole video in a nutshell. If you see it, you don't have to watch it. Why yield isn't the most important metric, right? I had a video that came out a couple of weeks ago where cash flow is not the most important metric, because if you don't know the yield, the cash flow means nothing. If you have $100,000 invested in a property and you're making $500 a month, is it a good return? Like, once you know how much it costs to acquire the property. You can't know just from the cash flow. Well, the yield isn't the most important thing. Howdy, Mike.
Howdy.
I like it when you log in and I'm saying something I know you're going to disagree with.
How? I made it just in time.
Right. So the question from my friend John was, why do I, want to do a duplex with 20% down instead of a FHA low down payment with a lower interest rate? So the interest rate could be the same, it could be better, it could be worse with FHA. That doesn't mean better interest rate. Owner occupied can get you the better interest rate. So either one can be that. I was talking about how I run the numbers as though I did 20% down, because I'm not looking to know what my yield's going to be. I'm looking to be able to compare properties, apples to apples, as much as I can. And that we both did a 5% down conventional owner-occupied loan for a duplex. The FHA does stand out, Gone, if you're still there, on a triplex or a fourplex, right? Because it stays at 3.5% down, and often even owner-occupied lenders will want more down than the 5% on that tri and four. So I hope that answered that question. And then while I'm getting to the howdies, Mike, we have that guest that's coming on later. I was thinking we do the thing where we do it on your channel. You log over, get it all set up, and then we'll leave here and go to your channel at the end. So in about an hour.
Yeah, we can aim for that if we want.
Okay.
Special guest from the comment section that people have seen before in yours and Lumberjacks videos. Special guest will be showing up around 5:15 Pacific time, so like an hour from now.
Perfect. And I have the second half of the answer from my friend John. So hopefully he didn't leave, because it sounded like I was done with the question. But that's why the way I look at them is I run the numbers on the house hack. But the reason I haven't done my VA zero down, and I'm more comfortable with 5% down or 20% down like I did on my fourplex, is because I have used a zero down loan option one time. It wasn't my VA. I used a first time home buyer program around 2000 where it covered, I basically purchased a house, went to closing, zero out of pocket, wrapped the closing costs up into it, and got a check for like $1,200 to walk away from the closing table. And then after my divorce and after the housing market crash and after my adjustable rate hits, I can almost not afford the payment. And since I was over levered on that property, I couldn't give it away. I couldn't even give it away when I found somebody where we could do it without an agent, so there wouldn't be any agent fees. So I always wanted to start off with some kind of equity position. And so hopefully that answers that question. So howdy to everybody in the chat. Mike, would you like to tell everybody where we are going and when we will be there?
Yes. So we did a little portfolio tour of Dion's rental properties. And for those of you who don't follow me on Instagram, you probably don't know, I just closed on a triplex on Friday. So that will be unit number 11, 12, and 13 for me. That's my 9th rental property. And this is going to be another BRRRR strategy project. I've done 2 burst strategies. I did them last year. I'm going to do another one right here. I bought the triplex for $67,000. I think I'm going to put about 30,000 into it, hoping to be all in around 100 grand. Should have an after repair value of 160,000 or better. Those are my preliminary numbers, what I'm looking at. Now I got a quote from a contractor already on some repairs, but I'm going to fly out to Gary, Indiana, March 31st through April 4th. So starting in 10 days. Dion is coming with. We might even get 2 or 3 of the 3 Avengers out there. There might even be another one who makes a certain appearance. We'll see if he can get some flights booked, but there might be a couple of live streams coming to you from Gary, Indiana. Dion's going to be packing so that we can defend ourselves. I'm bringing body armor. I was just at SWAT training. They said I was not allowed to bring one of our up armored vehicles, unfortunately. So we'll be a little risky at the gas stations, but it should be a good time. But I wanted to talk about the topic of your video for the day, Dion, things that change when we're rich. I want to change that just a little bit to, do things change when we are successful? Because rich is only one way to look at it. I don't consider myself rich, right? I don't have the cash flow you have. I don't have the reserve. I didn't have to worry that my over $250,000 limit might be wiped out by a bank. Not a problem I have. I didn't have to go to one bank and say, write me a check. But things that change when you're successful. And I told this story to Dion. I don't know if I've ever told it on his channel or my channel. I don't think I ever felt truly like I was a successful real estate investor until I very first went to one of Dion's live in-person meetups. Because when I showed up, I'm just a regular guy. Nobody there really followed me on YouTube or anything, just a totally regular guy. And I walk in and I'm surrounded by a bunch of people who all have real estate related goals. They want to be where Dion is at. And I start talking and networking with these people. And come to find out, like, I'm the most successful investor in this entire room of people other than Dion. And like, I never really felt like what I had done was substantial or noteworthy, or I had accomplished anything yet. Like, yeah, I'd bought a few rental properties, and at this time I only had like 7. But that was the moment when I very first felt like I was successful. And what's changed since, back to the title of the video, do things change when you're successful? Yeah. I go to these meetups. People are impressed with the level of success I have to the point where they want to invest with me. I have a private money lender that's coming in on this triplex deal with me because they have watched and monitored my success. I've told them the story, and I never pitched anything to them. Like, I never tried to get money from anybody. I never even asked for it. All I did was just help people, encourage them what to do, try to help them get real estate. And then when they asked me, hey, could I ever partner with you on a deal? I said, well, I've never had a partner, but something I learned from Zuber, like, if somebody offers you money, figure out how to make it work, right? Figure out how to take it. And so I'm sitting there, okay, well, how could I structure a deal? And I put together this whole structure. I'll put that video on my channel at some other point. But things that change when you're successful, other people want a piece of that success. Things that change when you're rich, a lot of times other people want your money. But if you market yourself as successful, people want to be a part of your story, and you'll get more opportunities because of it. You'll have the opportunity to do more deals because people bring you deals. I've talked about the Instagram follower who brought me one of my deals. Like, things change as you put yourself out there. You work hard, you're successful, and you share that with people in a non-bragging way. I'm not trying to be a D-bag, but yeah, things can change for you and in a good way. So Dion, my question back to you so that I can stop talking and have a drink of water is, how did things change for you when you started considering yourself successful, or when you hit that success limit, whatever?
So it's actually really small things. We were just at the Robin Hood Resort where Cody and Christian from their multifamily strategy put on an event. And there was a presenter talking, and she's talking about, dozens of flips and $1 million commercial properties.
Yeah, she had that office.
Right. So just like these things I haven't done. I haven't flipped a property. I haven't done a rehab. Like, I'm watching all this. And then at the end, the last statement was her last statement. Well, I don't have any cash flow yet. Like, that's going to happen. And so I sit back and I go, so there are people doing bigger projects and deals and more flips than me that don't have financial freedom. So, or I hear Matt or Zuber go, talking anything about 120 something units and self-managing and all these kind of things. And I sit back and I learn the systems that let them do that. And I incorporate those systems into my 16 units. And I have like ultimate time freedom, because what they're doing to manage 130 or 7 or whatever, I'm doing at 16. So it takes me like 2 hours a month, right? So I sit back and I go, why? Like right now, why are there people watching this video in the chat asking questions? Because I don't have hundreds of units. I don't have, what are the other, what color is your Bugatti or whatever the question is, I have 6 different cars. What I have is time freedom. And that starts to be something that lets me know how successful I am. When I started sitting back going, that time multiplication, you've heard me talk about that a few times. You can live more, not longer, right? I don't want to be super healthy and extend 85 to 90 because those years are going to suck no matter what shape I'm in. But if I can have time freedom now, instead of having 4 or 5 hours a day that are mine, like most people do that have to work, I have 15 because I don't have to work. So I'm going to live more in the next year than I would in those extra 5 years I would get by living super healthy. So I still eat relatively healthy. I still exercise, but I'm not so focused on that, but because I'm living more. Now, that's where that success to me comes from. Also, the first time you go to the bank and the teller sees your amount and they start recommending, you should talk to our investing person. I'm like, no, hang on, wait, you still have money in my account? I don't invest with some banker investing person. Like there's a very different way to make money. We've talked about this before, so I'm sorry for repeating myself for the people that have been here before, but the very first time you feel successful, coming poor the way we were, right? I mean, and I'm so old in California, our family was too poor to have food stamps because the way the system worked is you gave the state $1 and then you got $2 back in food stamps, and they worked that. So we raised our own animals. And so going to a restaurant, going to eat was a treat. And then, and as a single parent with 3 kids, taking my kids out to eat, if I ate anything, it was from the appetizer side, and then I would have water. And so the first time we went to a restaurant, I realized I can actually have like a soda with and actually get a meal, not an appetizer. Like that's mind-blowing amounts of wealth to me. And now I'm trying to think of the last time I looked at the prices on a menu instead of sitting down and going, in this moment, what do I feel like eating? And yeah. So howdy to everybody in the chat. I appreciate that. Let's see if we can get some questions here. Financial firefighter, you can't do a link unless you are a moderator, which we're currently not. But I see your comment is
firefighter. I don't think I'd let that slide. Don't make him a mod. He's not trustworthy.
Exactly. There we go. So it looks like you're going to post a link to a thing where a landlord either got shot or killed during an eviction. Personal safety is very important. It's one of the things where I talk about when I'm screening tenants. One of the things I like to do is meet them where they currently live to sign the lease, because how they treat where they're currently living is going to be how they treat where they're at your place. Now, former Marine, former law enforcement, I don't go to the restroom without my personal protection device, right? Like I don't go anywhere without, like, so we're going to Gary, I'm going to figure out how do I get it through Chicago without breaking laws, right?
That's the only trick.
No ammunition.
Yeah, because it's such a free city in Chicago.
But then once we get to Indiana, where the actual sane people live,
right,
I'll be able to do that. And so I'm comfortable going to someone's house. If you're not, don't do that. Have a property manager. Don't go alone. If you're going through an eviction, right? I don't think Matt goes and kicks the person out and changes the locks. Like an actual eviction is a sheriff event. So yeah, if you can get that in there now, people could check that out. And then Ninja Vanish. I missed the first statement, but Matt the lumberjack landlord says, I got lucky, dad was rich. Something they say, your favorite answer. Have to think that excuse my lifetime of failures. Don't worry, we don't talk about it in the winner's circle.
Dude, the amount of online haters just never ceases to amaze me. Like you'll post something, all these articles that have been done on Business Insider, and you go watch the comment section when they get posted on Facebook, or in your case, Reddit. And dude, the amount of, it must be daddy's money. Is like, man, what small-minded thinking. I mean, think of how miserable these people must be to be at a point in their life where if they see someone who's done something that they haven't done, they have two options. They either got to make excuses for why that person accomplished it, or they just have to straight up say that person's evil. No, that's wrong. That's evil. That's why I don't want to do it. Money's the root of all evil. Yeah, okay. Or, oh, well, the only reason you could accomplish it was because dad gave you a bunch of money and you got lucky and it's impossible to do it now. Like, to get to that point in your life, I kind of feel bad for them. Except for the fact they did it to themselves. They could have chosen to do something different and they didn't. So more shout out to the chat here. These are the people who are taking it upon themselves to not make excuses and do something with their life, be productive. I had a lady reach out to me on Instagram yesterday. She's like, I heard your story about being divorced and, you know, split custody with a kid and not having a bunch of money. She's like, I'm living here in the States, but I'm from London originally. And I got all these things that are going on and I don't know what to do to get out of my financial hardship, but I saw your video on house hacking and I believe that's how I can solve my problem. And I was like, absolutely it is. And she's local here to Washington. So I invited her to our next Tacoma FI meetup. I was like, you need to come to the meetup because there's lots of other people in the same boat as you. And you need to be around people who have a similar mindset because everybody online and everybody, even in your own family, is probably going to tell you bad, negative, horrible things. You have to put yourself around people that are going to like support you in your goals to make your financial goals and your real estate related goals and your personal work goals. Like, you need to be around, because Dion was saying earlier, he's got his range friends, me, his real estate friends, still me, his friends he goes to Denny's with, me again. Like, that's all you need.
That is all you need. Exactly. Now I just got to figure out how to get you to Portugal.
I'm going to get a passport and then find a babysitter for my son.
Oh, they have kids in Portugal too. Bring them.
Okay.
Ninja Vanish to Lumberjack says, I got some of those responses when I was trying to help a friend out who's stuck making the same bad decisions. It's sad when you want to help, but they repeat narratives like an NPC. So my actual question is to Matt, without Googling it, do you know what an NPC is? And second, they do repeat narratives, especially in those Reddit groups or when Business Insider articles come out. So just Google Business Insider, Matt Hawkins, Business Insider, Michael Zuber, Michael Newton, Dion McNeeley, like, and you just see all these, look at the comments. The narrative is something like, greedy landlords buy all the properties, and that's why homeowners can't afford to buy a property. First, assuming everybody wants to own a home. Second, that everyone has the financial ability to own a home, to fix the roof, replace the water heater, fix the foundation, not be, locked into one area. They want to be more transient. So there are people who want to rent, not thinking that I have 16 units. One of them is a single family house. Matt has 137 units. Most of them, I think he's got 2 single family houses now out of over 100 units. So it's not like we're out there scooping up all the single family houses. Mike, you just closed on a triplex. Not too many homeowners trying to buy a triplex. And then you take investment requirements of 20 to 25% down, higher interest rate. DSCR looks at the debt service coverage ratio on the loan versus owner occupied home buying with zero down first time home buyer loans, FHA at 3.5%, conventional at 3% for that first home, better interest rate, Fannie Freddie backed loans, like all of those things that makes it possible. And then you throw back a statistic like, well, 2 years ago, the largest group of home buyers were millennials at 37%. And last year, the largest group of home buyers was millennials at 43%. So it's not like there's all these corporations or all of these, investors scooping up all the deals. None of them are watching this content. None of them are this far into a video like this. But if you know any of them, tell them to write this down. It's your lazy ass not taking action is why you're not on the property ladder. That person who's complaining about somebody else buying properties. Everything is out there set up to help you get on the property ladder. Rant over. Tom said, Lumberjack, I'm signing up for the course as soon as I get home.
The course is money. The boot camp is better. They're both great, but as always, again, it just comes back to putting yourself around people who help you be motivated. The course is amazing. But then when you sit down on a Sunday morning with a lumberjack and 20 other people all trying to take over insourcing property management at the same time, and everybody's asking the same questions and struggling through it together, like, I'm telling you, you got to be around like-minded people. That goes with everything.
Howdy to everybody. Dividend Dave, Ninja Vanish, REI Stoners, All Nighter Hider. All Nighter Hider says hit the like button, please. Appreciate that. And this is a completely unrelated question to all of the names that I just listed. But Mike, not as a law enforcement officer, just as a Washington state citizen. I had a question sent to me that is not quite real estate related. So we're going to take 30 seconds out of this video to give you a public service announcement. The question was, in Washington state, are you allowed to use lethal force if somebody tries to run you over with their car?
I'm not allowed to give legal advice.
Okay. I'll answer it because I know you don't want to get you in trouble with work.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I'll give you some advice, but I mean, go ahead. You go first.
Okay. Well, so the answer is yes, absolutely. But you have to be under imminent threat. So as soon as the threat is over, you can't follow road rage by chasing somebody and killing them or taking some action against them. Once the situation is over, you should be creating distance between you and that person. But when you are under imminent threat, when you feel that your life is in danger, when you are in fear for your life, and you can use those exact words to describe the situation, you are allowed to defend yourself. And just so you know, your car, if you retaliate, is considered a lethal weapon. It's no different to go at somebody with your car than to pull a firearm towards that person.
Dion, it sounds like you have personal experience with that. No one's ever tried to hit you with their car before, though, right?
Actually, I told you the time that did happen. I was a reserve in a really small town. We had 3 cop cars, 3. All 3 of them destroyed in the same slow speed chase. Yeah. DUI driver that never got over 5 miles an hour, but somehow totaled all 3 of the cars. I was in the Chiefs car, which sucked to explain. Yeah, that was fun. So yeah, you're allowed to use lethal force. We didn't have to in that case because we were going 5 miles an hour.
So the standard for a citizen versus someone who's in law enforcement is going to be more generous to the random citizen, which is good. That's how it should be. Law enforcement officers should be trained to a higher standard and held to a higher standard. Since Dion retired from being a police officer to where I'm at now, laws have actually changed. It's no longer imminent threat. It is now written into law that it is immediate threat. There's a definition change between the two of those. Imminent means about to happen. Immediate means happening now. So in order for a law enforcement officer to use deadly force, the individual has to be an immediate threat and have the means, ability, opportunity, and intent to commit serious bodily injury or death to yourself or someone else. You as a private citizen, again, I'm not giving legal advice. You as a private citizen don't have to hold yourself to as strict a standard. But like Dion said, somebody tries to hit you with their car, but then they drive off and you can't just fire at them as they're fleeing, right? Somebody breaks into your house and you fear for your safety and I was afraid for my safety and my family's safety. The law is going to be much more generous in defending you. Okay, that's about the furthest advice I can give on that topic.
We'll get back onto real estate, but one last unrelated question to my friend John, who asks, barbarian, rogue, or mage? The answer, of course, is druid. Right. Versatility, tank, heal, distance, DPS,
flight form.
Fine. Yeah. And even with the new Diablo, druid. And then I saw something from Ned Talks and I missed it. Howdy, everyone. There's always something I didn't know. I'm constantly learning. That's the one thing I learned is being a CDL instructor at the truck driving school here in Washington for literally a decade. Even in my last couple of years there, I'd be out with a student. I could learn from somebody who just started driving a couple of years ago, some new way of looking at how to drive. So there's always something to learn. Dividend Dave, I reached out for my first owner finance proposal to an owner of 2 duplexes. Nice. You'll have to let us know how that goes.
Yeah. Is that in Indiana, Dave? Is that up in Gary? I'm curious to hear about that one. How'd you find the deal? What was your proposal? And man, I hope they say yes.
And when maybe reach out when they come back with a response. Remember, we're going to try to use Lumberjack's strategy of the reverse offer. What matters to you the most? Figuring out if we can get that incorporated, and thinking of the ways that you can best negotiate that. And then I want to thank Tom because at the very beginning you sent the super chat, which I really appreciate, asking about the links to the lights that I use. So I put that in the chat. They're in the descriptions for the videos after they've posted. They'll be there too. And then Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, says, of course, my favorite friends are him and Millie and Mike, of course, and going to Vegas or Gary with anybody else. So T. Adams says to take 2 months for Spain and Portugal and El Camino to Santiago. I will enjoy it. So I'm sure I will. I have to be back in the middle of May for our event at the Northwest Action Summit in Portland, Oregon, where we are presenting, and when Christian and Cody are the keynote speakers this year, so they're going to be there too. And my brother's calling me. I should put him on a live, but I don't know. I can't trust that he's going to say something. No, I can't do that.
Did you already
give when we were sitting next to each other, not to say illegal stuff? Like into the phone.
Did you give people the debrief on Cody and Christian's event yet?
No, I haven't. If you want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke at Cody and Christian's event on last Saturday. It was a good time. Aaron Broderson, who's down in the chat right now, flew all the way out here from South Dakota. We had dinner at Denny's. Man, that was tough. Dinner at Denny's with him. It was a good time. And yeah, it was a great event. Dion killed it as a speaker as usual. He always stands up. He loves to play the favorites. It's like, does anybody know how to get your tenants to ask you to pay rent? Everybody here in the chat's like, well, the binder strategy, of course, but all the noobs at Cody and Christian's event were like, poor K, tell us more. So, round of applause for Dion for his amazing strategy. And it was a good time.
So the idea here is, if I asked right now in the chat, is there anybody who doesn't know how to get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent? I'm pretty sure everybody this far into a live knows that strategy. But every time we do a live, I have to ask that question, because I thought, well, maybe there'll be 2 or 3 people there. But it was like 80%. Hadn't heard of it. So definitely did that topic. And then investing at a distance never hurts your strategy. And I got some, are these super stickers?
They're members only comments, I think is what they are.
But
they might also be a super chat, but it doesn't
something different, because there are other members with comments that don't look this way. But REI Stoners, you're welcome for the explanation. Be careful out there. Dividend Dave's information on his duplex. Offered $310 for 2 Winston-Salem duplexes. Sounds like a real place. Yeah. Maybe seller financing for much higher, but then it wouldn't cash flow. Look at what the interest rates would be, how long you can advertise the loan. There's a couple ways there to maybe figure out how to get its cash flow. See a question here from Ned Talks. Was what I was looking for. I want to build a rental business, and oddly, Dion is so lazy. A lot of his ideas are very easy to scale or reframe into good business practices. Thank you. That's the point. That's the actual point. It would not work for me if it wasn't, and I don't want to say easy. I want to say as simple and automated as possible. Right? I'd had to work with somebody who was working full-time, raising kids, and lazy at the same time. And Rob says I should wear the silk suits when I do the Robin Hood Resort meetups. No, that would be absolutely fake of me to then go and say, look, I have expensive clothes, which silk suits in Thailand are not expensive clothes.
Pirate suit only.
Pirates. Oh, see, I would wear the pirate suit out there. Nice. Are there any questions that you see here, Mike?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying much attention.
Okay, Ned Talks. Really, though, I watch a lot of you guys and keep focused on how others are doing this and thinking the same way. Generally, this is a pretty lonely pursuit, as Dion has just pointed out. It very much so is. It's weird. It's a lonely trip, and then even in not when it comes to real estate and financial freedom, but it's lonely at the top. You get promoted to a management position, you're usually no longer able to be friends with your coworkers because you have control over their performance reviews, if nothing else. So it's nice to find people that are on the same path.
I got a question here that I can answer. John Williams, can you reuse granite? I'm staring at what looks like dumped countertops. Can you cut granite to your dimensions, assuming the scraps are big enough? Yes, you can. I was a granite installer for a number of years. For 6 years before I became a cop, I used to fabricate granite countertops and install them in marble and tile. However, the problem is, as you probably figured out, the odds that the dumped granite actually fits what you're going to need it for, very, very small chance you'll be able to reuse it in a kitchen. But if somebody threw away a bunch of granite because they did a remodel, you might be able to repurpose a little section of it for like a vanity in a bathroom. So you might be able to cut enough out to get a couple of bathrooms done. Maybe some backsplash, a couple of windowsills, something small, but it's probably gonna be very hard for you to have found enough granite that's still intact And then the next thing you would want to do is you'd want to make sure that you sanitize it really well and then seal it. If it's granite or marble, it needs to be sealed or you're going to have some issues with it.
Yeah, if it's been used, that's all great advice. Most people don't realize is that when you go into a store and you buy granite, the best way to do it is get it from a remnant. Somebody you got large granite for a bigger job. There's a section generally bigger than almost every kitchen because it's coming from something commercial anyway, and hasn't been used, so you don't have to go through so many steps there. Question from Malcolm. Howdy. I bought a bad deal trying to get into house hacking and then found your channel. Overpaid for a duplex and more repairs than expected. It still cash flows. What are some tips to make things work moving on? Malcolm, do you still live in the duplex? That's my first question. Because if it cash flows, you have positive cash flow while living in a duplex, that's killing it, right? Most of us talk about house hacking, or people will hear that I'm living in a fourplex where I'm being paid to live here because there's 4 units, right? It was a bigger investment, more ways to make rent. On my first duplex, I did not cash flow while I lived there. I was paying $300 a month toward the mortgage, even though I had a tenant. But it reduced my living expenses. That was a benefit. So if you're still living there and it cash flows, when we run the numbers on a house hack, we run it like it's next year after you've moved out. What does it look like? What would it look like with all units rented? So it sounds like you might have a good deal. If you are out now and it's cash flowing, when we're pursuing the next deal, what we usually, so math is step 1. There's about 20 steps, right? Now, other economic drivers, what's the layout of the property? Is there parking? Are there washer dryer hookups? Like all the things we look at to make sure it's a good or a bad deal. Math is step 1. We want to find the best yield or a good yield, like Matt Lumberjack, the landlord, pointed out on Zuber's course. Zuber's strategy is to learn the market, learn average, and then try to beat that, right? And we have all said, as collectively as a group, that way you get a good deal. And Matt pointed out, really, it's an insurance policy to stop you from getting a bad deal. Like if you learn average and you beat that, you're not going to be getting a bad deal in most cases. So you use that going forward. If you are cash flowing in a property that you've already purchased, that's not something I would consider as something to fix. I would look at going forward. This is now experience. There are people who would argue you could sell it, maybe have the money to redeploy. You're going to have cost of selling. You're going to have to 1031 if you're not living there. If you do live there, I'd have to Google how the 121 rule works in a small multifamily because you're only occupying half of it or 1/4 of a fourplex, like how the depreciation works, how the 121 rule works. There's all of that. I don't know that I would look to sell if you're cash flowing. I would need a little more detail on whether you're living there. If you're cash flowing while you're living there, what are you expecting to? Because it's not, Mike, I don't think when you first moved into your duplex, you were positive cash flow.
No, I mean, technically I'm still not. My monthly payment is $2,400 a month. And my tenant on the other side pays $2,200. So technically I'm negative $200. But if I moved out of my unit, I'd have $2,200 over there. And this side I'm in can rent for $2,500. Well, then I'm cash flowing really well. So to me, this does not sound like a bad situation to be on. Based on what he said, he's like, yeah, I overpaid. There was more repairs than expected, but it still cash flows. Okay, well, great. And what is our goal with every deal that we buy? That it's better than the last one. So buy one that's better than the last one. And over time, opportunities for you to make your current deal better will come around. Either appreciation will happen, rents will go up, value of the property will go up. At some point, interest rates might come down and you'll have an opportunity to refinance into a better loan, bring your payment down while you increase rents, it'll cash flow better over time. But I mean, if it's not an alligator and you're not bleeding money on it, you can hold, you're just not making a lot.
There's a question here from Greg B. How does a landlord, so first, howdy, Greg, thanks for hanging out. How does a landlord get around the laws that require real estate brokers being involved in leases? Example, Illinois. First thought would be don't get around the laws, figure out how to work with the laws. Right? They're there for a reason to protect bad players, to protect tenants from bad players. Know your local laws and know what the restrictions are. A lot of times people will live in a place like California or Oregon and they say, well, it's really hard to invest here because we have rent control. Okay, are you house hacking a small multifamily? Because then it doesn't apply in some places. Is it a single family? Because that doesn't apply in some places. How many units do you have total? Because then it doesn't apply in some places. So I don't know the laws in Illinois, but that's the first thing I would check is if the law is that you're saying, so this is from you, that real estate brokers are involved in leases, that's a requirement in Illinois. Is it required on the type of property that you have, the number of rentals that you have? And if they are required to be involved in leases, to what extent? Is it that they have to verify that they're real, that they meet the state standards, or do they have to be the one that notarizes the signatures? And how much is the fee for that? And then you incorporate that fee in your cost to acquire, so if it's a good or a bad deal. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, so I have one rental property in Chicago, which is obviously in Illinois, and I'm unaware of this requirement, but that's probably because I use somebody to property manage for me who has their real estate credentials, the brokerage. So I'm sure that's why it works out. It's not a non-issue for me. So, but the way that it works out, this person doesn't have a formal property management contract with me. This is a friend of mine who owns 60 plus rentals, has helped me out in that market. His wife's a broker. And so it sounds to me like, I mean, unless I'm doing something illegal and I just don't know it, it sounds to me like you probably just have to have a real estate broker either sign somewhere on there that they certified it or look over it. It might not be very hard. You could probably just go to a real estate agent and ask them for some help. And that's what I would do. I would start looking for the cheapest, easiest way to fix the problem. And it might just be that you have a real estate broker. Who'd you buy the house with? You got a rental out there. Who'd you buy the house with? Ask them for some help, ask them for some advice or a referral or what they would recommend, because they probably do this all the time. Illinois is a weird state. Their real estate agents don't even do anything. They literally help you find the house. They write the offer. And as soon as the offer has been written, they're done. It goes to a real estate attorney who then goes through like the inspection process with you and the closing process. With the weirdest thing ever. I don't know why agents make money out there. They don't deserve it. So make them work for it and have them help you out with this broker being involved.
Question from John Williams that I think I have two answers for. If you find a home in Portugal, have you done the math on what time the streams and Three Amigo chats will need to be? First, yes, the Three Amigos one is going to be easy because it's something like 7 or 8 hours ahead, right? So we record at 8 in the morning, so it's going to be afternoon, 4 or 5 in the evening for me. Very easy. The streams, it's going to be middle of the night, early morning, which this is why there's two answers to this. One of the really cool things I realized about reaching financial freedom and retiring is most people, like Zuber, will say every day is Saturday. And for a while I said every night is Friday night. But then I realized, so we're saying the day of the week doesn't matter because work doesn't matter. The time of day doesn't matter. So literally the way I look at it is I actually never sleep, but I tend to take a nap somewhere between 1 in the morning and 8 in the morning. Right, that's like it's kind of a nap time period because time doesn't matter. So it's going to be interesting because I'll be there for a month and then I might go back. And then the plan is to be there once I close on the house, 3-4 months in the winter. So that will definitely impact. These things will still happen. It'll just be a different time for me. What book is that, to answer Rob's question?
Yeah, it is The 5 Lessons a Millionaire Taught Me About Life and Wealth by Richard Paul Evans. I just picked it up from a Goodwill book section when I was in there. So I actually haven't read this one yet. I just have it sitting over here on my to-do list. However, Freakonomics, which is over here, as well as One Rental at a Time and The Millionaire Next Door are all great books. Freakonomics is hilarious. It's a book about the economy, and it's just honestly like a comedy book, but it's pretty funny.
Nice. So I have Rich Dad Poor Dad, a couple of BiggerPockets books, One Rental at a Time, 15 Conversations. But then I have this book. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, what book is that? Is that
It's a Halo 2, the video game.
Okay.
A classic.
So in the chat, let me know if you've seen me explain what this is. I won't talk about it. But if I get at least 5 people to say, I have no idea what that is, then I will explain that my entire business, my entire business structure is in this book. So if you've seen the video, it's great. I won't have to duplicate it, but we'll see. So Malcolm, I rent in the other unit is at area average. Yeah, so that sounds like you are living there. Yeah, if you're cash flowing and living there, that's a killer deal.
Hey,
I mean, I would want to know the yield once you moved out. It might even be better than a killer deal, but.
Real quick, just so before I forget, Lumberjack commented, I'm going to abuse contractors for Mike. So I am going to have just a boatload of contractors come to my house and give me estimates on the repair job. One of the pieces of advice that I got from the lumberjack when I visited him out in New Hampshire 4 or 5 months ago, he said, you need to go to Gary to manage your own repair processes. You need to contact every painter, every plumber, every roofer, every landscaper that you can. Have them all come out and meet with you and start to build out a team. And then when you have a project, make them bid against each other so you can find the best ones. Well, conveniently, I found myself a triplex with a boatload of work that needs to be done. And so I'm going to have everybody come to the house to give me bids. And Lumberjack's going to be there. And as he just said, he's going to abuse contractors for me. If you guys don't think that I'm going to have my camera set up so we can catch these guys on Candid Cam, you're dead wrong. We're going to watch in real time while the Lumberjack annihilates these people. I'm sure it'll be fun. You'll get the highlights. Don't worry. And we'll see how much money I can save on this repair.
It's going to be fun to watch. I know my friend was doing a rehab on a unit, which I don't have the experience at, right? So Matt is the guy I would go to, and they were doing cabinets and countertops, and we called Matt, and he was a phenomenal help. So, I mean, that information there that's given out in the course, amazing, absolutely. So, in a few minutes, we're going to have you pop over, make your live stream, and grab our special guest. And while we're doing that, I will cover. I think everybody knows what the book is, so I don't have to cover that, and I'll cover other stuff. It's not the Art of War. Nice. The Book of the Dead is a good guess. I like that. Ash was my hero, by the way. Do you think bonus depreciation will be reinstated? As of now, it seems to be due to phased out by 2027. So bonus depreciation is phasing out, and the meal write-offs are going away too. Remember, that was 2021, 2022, in order to encourage and help restaurants recover. The tax law changed to where, for a bit, 100% of meals that were related to your business were write-offs. That could be going away too.
Kevin Cato asked a question. He goes, Ryan Pineda's first step in his wealthy way strategy is to make $250,000 a year net. He says, I know you two have a more slow, steady, and humble approach. I think that's code for saying we're broke. But gun to your head, how would you accomplish making $250,000 a year with no OnlyFans? I added that. So I know Dion's mind went to.
Only homes. Get it right. Only homes. Gun to your head, how do you make $250,000 a year? Is you get into sales, you get into IT sales, and you climb the corporate ladder. I reached financial freedom in less than 10 years. And until the last couple of years, after reaching financial freedom, it was after financial freedom that my job started paying me that much. But the first 8 years of investing, I never broke 6 figures, not once. So the idea that the best way to reach financial freedom is to make $250,000. I like Ryan Pineda. I watch his stuff. That's ridiculous. But somebody who goes from high school to professional sports is going to have a very different outlook on how the world works. Yeah, I'm trying to think of all of the people that I know. Do I even know 3 people who make $250,000? I know 2, 3. I know 3. Yeah, I know exactly 3. I still don't. Financial freedom. I was doing my taxes, $203,000 in profit for 2022. So that's not even 250. It doesn't take $250,000 a year to reach financial freedom. I actually say this often. The average person can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less and make work completely optional, even if you're not starting from the best position. And my suggestion, the first one, is to increase your income, but I have never thought 250,000 should be the goal. It should just be more than what you were making before without increasing your expenses. So, gun to your head, Mike, how do you make $250,000?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I think it does come down to the fact that you would just have to figure out some way of doing it in sales. I mean, the amount of time it would take to find a job like a lawyer or a doctor, you can't do it fast enough. If you either started a business, I've seen some really cool things out there. I watch stuff online. If I really truly had to do it, probably what I would do is I would try to start like a pressure washing company or a lawn care company, because I see a whole lot of these people who are like, yeah, man, if I just do $40 a yard, and I can get X number of yards done a day, or pressure wash X number of driveways a day at 150 a driveway. I can do 8 driveways a day. I see some of these like 21, 22-year-olds who don't mind being out in the hot weather or the cold weather, working in the elements, and they're able to scale that really quickly, but then very quickly they run out of hours in the day. And if they hire just a couple of young teenagers, they can kind of scale their business. So if I was going to do it, I would probably try to do it like something like that, to give you just a different answer from being a salesperson like Dion gave you. I've seen some good stuff around that lawn care type of service.
You're running a small business, but 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years or something like that. And then 9 out of those 10 fail in the next 5 years. I mean, the statistics on success at doing that. Yeah, I think the answer I would go with is find a way to reach financial freedom that doesn't require such a drastic amount of income.
Yeah, you don't need that much money. That's fake news.
And then I see a super chat from Adam. Howdy, I appreciate it. Happy Tuesday. I see a question I want to cover from T. Yeah, I do not. Howdy, T. Yeah, I don't have all of the details, so this will be a guesstimate. Should I spend $25,000 on my home that will net $600 a month, or sell and pocket $100,000 to put towards better conditioned home and better location, but will be 6% for 30 years? So I did a video with the 3 amigos this morning that might be out on Zuber's channel. The 2.8% for 30 year and the 6% for 30 year, and take a note, right? Because I'm not going to say this sarcastically. I'm going to say it with emotion. Doesn't matter. That's not the total equation you're looking at. What is the yield? With what you spend, how much are you going to be making? So the 6% on 30 year, if you put $100,000 towards that new house, are you then going to be losing $1,000 a month and have a negative yield? Or are you going to be making $1,000 a month and maybe have a bit of a yield? Would that be a 12% yield, right? If you made $1,000 a month in profit. So that to get that answered, it would be the first question, because this question comes up often in another format of people say I have equity, which I say means you have the ability to put debt on an existing asset. So the question is, should I use a home equity line of credit? Should I sell to buy another place and use a 1031? Or should I do a cash out refinance or get a second mortgage to leave the debt alone that's already on there so I can get the money without changing that interest rate? Like, those are all the questions, right? That usually come like this. You're asking, should I fix up the house and get some cash flow, or should I buy another one? The question that comes before that, before all of that, if you're going to sell, how confident are you with that $100,000 at the new 6% interest rate that you can actually find a deal that would have the yield or cash flow that you're looking for? And not, I think, but I mean an actual deal where, you know, if you made the offer, there was a high likelihood that it would be accepted and you wouldn't be outbid by $50,000 over asking on that deal. Because selling has a cost. You're going to pay 6 to 8% in agent fees. If you lived there, you can use the IRS 121 rule. If you didn't, you can maybe 1031, but then there's a time component that's involved in there. So you could end up having to pay taxes on it. Like, there's a lot of things you're doing there where, with me, I've never sold a property. It's fix it up and rent it out. That doesn't mean it's always the right option. Matt has sold deals where it just made more sense. He had to use, like, the vast majority of his tenant turnovers was at one place, and it was more of a headache than it was worth. So sold, put the money to work in a better place. Totally makes sense in some cases. So I'm not saying my way was right. I'm saying in this scenario, with the information I've got there, that the interest rates aren't what I'd look at. What is the yield with each one? And can you actually find a deal the second round? And with that, Mike, I'm going to let you jump over.
Yeah, I'm working on it right now. So I'm going to jump out of here and then,
all right, and we'll be there in like
five minutes or something.
Yeah.
I'll post the link back in your live. I'll post the link back.
You post that, then we'll go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Let me see if I can get through as many questions as I can. Speed version. To and fro global. Howdy. Do you think, that was a depreciation one? Thank you for that question. And Aaron, thank you. It was nice to see you too. Our Rich Journey, folks. Somebody suggested that, and I was going to read that too. I think it was John that suggested the Irish Journey. I've been watching them. I've watched them for years. It's kind of one of the reasons why Portugal was on my radar. Recently, it was on my radar because the golden visa was going away, but that's not actually something I care about. I want a Portugal visa, not a golden visa. So as long as I can stay there for more than 3 months at a time, I will be totally fine. I don't know that I'll meet them. They're primarily stock investors. I think they have some real estate from what I've been watching, but if they're up to meeting, absolutely, I would go, hey, let's go meet. But yeah, I haven't thought of that. I'd have to actually find out. I haven't paid attention enough to know what town they were in, as much as I'm going to go for a month with my brother right now and go. I've got 3 towns picked out to check out. But Tiffany, howdy, thank you. That's a great question. All right, starters, looking forward to those videos. Can't stand our show. I think they're great. But I'm afraid we all have our own thing. There are some channels that I watch kind of all the time and interact with all the time. And the first couple times I saw them, I didn't like their stuff. Wasn't sure. And then they grew on me. Dong Tai, howdy, good to see you. Definitely don't make 250 a month yet. Well, I think that thing was even a year. Yeah. Justin. Yeah, mine was net T Adams on what I made, not gross. Gross was gross. Just ridiculous numbers. Justin, you can make 250 easily flying jets. You can even do it with a GED, but you need clean criminal record and no one will hire you. And yeah, cool. All of the pilots that I know, and I know about 10 actual pilots, make minimum wage, actual minimum wage. 4, 5 to 10 years, somewhere in there. They actually fly gas line, something, what do you call it? They're checking gas lines to book their hours to qualify for the better jobs. The Necronomicon, oh God, good job, nice. Who wrote the Necronomicon? Lovecraft wrote the Necronomicon. Salam. Alaikum salam, million. T Adams, a pressure washing business. It's a great idea. In a coffee shop, there you go. I know people who make more. If things get any crummier, you'll be printing money with a wrecker for doing repos. Great. Justin, that's awesome. And a few acres of land to hold the vehicles. That is so true. The money that the tow trucks make isn't often from the tows. It's from the impound fees. Ned Talks. I know a lot of guys who do house cutting after hurricanes and stuff and make crazy. My brother made good money with his tree service during storm times too, because insurance has basically got their hands tied. I assume you have opportunities up north with blizzards and stuff. Yep. Let's see if there's any questions here. Lillian, can you discuss when a time where you were impatient to reach FI goal? I know I must be patient to save and invest one property at a time. When was I impatient? The first 2 years, I was just saving. I mean, the actual first year while I was saving, my rental cost me $6,000 because I moved into an apartment, rented out the house, and lost $6,000. Saved $12,000 from my job and side hustles, so I ended up with $6,000 net positive at the end of the year. That patience was a struggle. Rob, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. How is Diablo 4? I'll translate it into gamer speak for you. Ready? Meh. But it's not because the game wasn't good. It's because it's not my type of game. I like first-person shooters. I don't like or behind the thing, fully kind of more 3D than Overlook. So that's me. When was I impatient to do a deal? There have been between purchases, I've been impatient. When was I impatient? That's a great question because I don't have an answer. I think the motivation that I had was strong enough to overlook the impatience. And the motivation I have is being lazy. I really didn't want to have to work. I don't mind work. I can work hard, but I don't want to have to go to work because there might be days where you don't want to work. And if you have to, you don't have a choice. And then what do you do if having to work is because you sell your life 1 hour at a time? What do you do when nobody's buying? So I wanted out of that. And so that motivation was so strong that I set a 10-year timeline. Like in my mind, I was like, if I could buy one house when I first started, every other year, so it'll take me 2 years to save a down payment. And in 10 years, I would have 5 rentals. That would maybe not be financial freedom. It would be a better financial future. And then at about 4 to 6 years, the income snowball kicked in and things happened way faster in the second 5 years. And financial freedom happened a lot better than I expected. So setting a long time horizon is probably, I think, the best way to avoid impatience being a problem, because impatience would make you make mistakes. slow is smooth and smooth is fast. The slower we try to do things and actually take action, the less likely we are to make mistakes. Mr. Nice Guy, howdy. Any experience with rental income insurance? No. One of our units is occupied from until 5/1. Hopefully we'll be signing one of the upcoming tours. The recent eviction moratoriums are still in the back of my mind. So the rental insurance didn't kick in for a lot of people during the eviction moratorium because you had tenants in place. They remember, an insurance company has a division, like a warranty company has a division, those people's job is to make sure they don't pay you. So I've never had rental insurance. What I do is I diversify my portfolio by locations where it's close to several different economic drivers. So I don't want my rentals too close together. And then I diversify my tenant base. So I have about 1/3 military, 1/3 working, 1/3 Section 8. So different sources of income coming in. And then keep good reserves and don't be over levered. I could handle a 50% rent reduction without having to pull out of my own pocket to pay mortgages. So structure the business to where you don't need the insurance on rental income, because remember what insurance is. Legal gambling. You will gamble this amount every month that you might ever eventually have a claim. So it's required to drive a car. It's required to get a mortgage. It's good business to have it on the properties. But the rental insurance, for me, it was easier to mitigate the risk than to insure the risk. I hope that helps. I think Mike just put up his chat, so I'm going to hang out here for a few minutes. Everybody should be clicking on that link to go over to Millennial Mike's channel. Subscribe if you haven't, because you should, especially if you want to know how to invest at a distance. And we have a guest from the chat who's going to be on Mike's channel to check you guys out. So I will be saying farewell soon. You should be going now to Mike's channel. The link is in the chat. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. You're still here. I don't want to go yet because it's going to close out the chat when I go. Click on the link. And if you're in Futureland, it's not going to work. Sorry. See if there was any questions here I should have got to. I'll take a screenshot and get to it. I have a tenant moving out. What is the first listing? Okay, I'm going to screenshot that. Jump in the market because it seems right. Take a screenshot. And I will either make videos to answer those questions or I will answer those questions. YouTube says there's 70 people still here. You should be clicking on the link. I'm going to the link. Oh, you got both open. Sneaky. Nice. Justin, the last thing I say before I go to Mike's, 2 + 2. Have you heard the Bill Gates, how he hired his accountant? Asked the first one, what is 2 + 2? And they said 4. Nope. Asked the next one, what's 2 + 2? And they said, what do you want it to equal? And that one was hired. Clicking the link.